Hello, welcome to Christian Reacts, where I react to Christian content on modern world issues and sins affecting every one of us all around. And this video is titled Pastor Kicked Off Stage After Calling Out Shocking Performance. So I skipped a little bit because it wasn't going into the actual issue into the video yet. So I'm 3 minutes into the video. This is called Ruslan's YouTube channel, where he talks about Christian topics all the time on his YouTube channel. I'll tag his channel below, and let's go.
Before we get into Mark Driscoll's call out in front of thousands of people in the middle of his talk, let's first look at what exactly he was disturbed by. Okay, so this is Alex Magala. He was on
Okay, and by the way, this was apparently at a men's conference, a men's Christian conference, mind you. So keep that in mind as the context of this.
America's Got Talent, and they decided to have him as an opening act, which, again, isn't surprising. Remember, last year they had tanks. They also had monster trucks before. So he's doing some, like, calisthenic type of moves here on what appears to be a stripper pole. And then he goes for the swords. Which is absolutely an abomination right here, because clearly the insinuation of this is a person stripping with a pole there. This is nothing to do with calisthenics. They could easily do any type of exercises. They could do pull-ups, they could do sit-ups, they could do crunches, they could do push-ups, anything else. So this is clear. There's a clear intention right here in showing this, and whatever the darkness, that evil motive behind this, there's definitely a darkness behind this intention right here. Swallows a sword, pause, and okay, and then he swallows a sword and climbs to the very top of this pole. That was the opening act. Now, again, remember, the other opening act for this was this.
The other opening act was a monster truck. I'm not kidding.
Now, if you're like me, you may be asking, why is there a shirtless male stripper on a pole swallowing swords at a men's conference? A Christian men's conference. Well, to be fair, they didn't hire a male stripper. They hired one of the world's best sword-swallowing circus acts, if you will. Alex Magala, it was on America's Got Talent. This is an act that he does. And from my understanding, Alex is a professing Christian. He's plugged into a local church, I believe in LA.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. This is what's so fascinating about this. This guy, Alex, can say whatever he wants. He can say how much of a Christian that he is and all that. But your actions of what you're doing in front of everybody is bigger proof of the type of person that you are and the type of values that you hold, that you hold on to yourself as. So if you profess to be a Christian and you testify that you're a Christian to all your family and your friends, coworkers, everybody who knows you, and yet you get paid for a gig that involves you basically acting in a inappropriate manner on a stripper pole, that's the context is very loose and it's very clear what's going on. I don't care if you claim to be a Christian. That action itself is sinful. It's very clear. It's very clear in this segment right here. And I don't necessarily put this on him. I think Alex was just there to provide entertainment, but it appears that Alex does. Yeah, I disagree with that. He's hired to do entertainment, but if you're a Christian, you have to have discernment in what you're hired to do. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you do for your work. You have to have discernment in everything that you do. Period.
It's come from the nightlife industry of sorts, if you know what I'm talking about. And the deeper question is, who in their right mind would think that men, especially young men, would want to see a shirtless, pole-performing, sword-swallowing opening act at a men's conference? So clearly he's not completely removed from the male stripping scene, but that is not what he's currently doing. That is not who they brought out. But who they brought out just doesn't seem like it struck a chord with the audience there, which is another L at the feet of James River Church. So it's not shocking that later, when Mark Driscoll took the stage, he had this to say about the opening act.
So after that opening act, this is Pastor Mark Driscoll. So this is I believe he's a guest speaker. He's a very well-known pastor online. I don't know him too well, but he's garnered a lot of attention. And it's not for the wrong reasons from what I've seen. Now, I don't know too much. I don't want to speak too much on him, but sometimes he's involved in controversies for speaking the truth and from the gospel. So those things are good, as long as it comes from a biblical perspective. So let's continue.
We're going to talk about how to be an Elijah and how to deal with Ahab and Jezebel. But let me do this. I've been up since 1 o'clock in the morning. The reason I'm hoarse is I have been praying for you, and my heart is very burdened for you. And I want to be very careful with this, and it's not what I want to say, but the Jezebel spirit has already been here.
Wow. Let's hear that one more time.
With this, and it's not what I want to say, but the Jezebel spirit has already been here.
Wow. So he explicitly calls out the action that just took place, and as Christians, that's what we're called to do. And I give him so much credit for doing this because he clearly went off script. He clearly well, at least it seems like he didn't know what was going to happen. And even if he did know, I think it's even more bold to do this anyway, to go through with it. But the fact that you go off script, most likely, and you call out this behavior in front of hundreds of people, potentially thousands, I'm not sure how big that church is, but hundreds of people, at least, putting your reputation on the line in front of the people that hired you and all, to be a guest speaker and all that, is very commendable.
The Jezebel spirit opened our event. This is a rebuke and a correction of no one. This is an observation. Before the Word of God was open, there was a platform. It was a high place. On it was a pole, an ashtray. The same thing that's used in a strip club for women who have the Jezebel spirit to seduce men.
Wow. Excellent. And I like how he doesn't just doesn't just call it out as a Jezebel spirit and say, this was Jezebel spirit, and then everyone claps and he just walks away. No. He goes into detail very calmly. And I notice that he goes on a knee, almost as if, like, pleading for God, like asking for God on mercy on what's just took place, the action that just took place at this church. So it's very fascinating that what he's done right here.
In front of that was a man who ripped his shirt off like a woman does in front of a pole at a strip club. That man then ascended. See, our God is not arrogant. He doesn't ascend. Our God is humble. He descends. And then he swallowed a sword, and Jesus cried, okay, Pastor John, I'll receive that. Thank you.
That's the pastor telling him, you're out of line, Mark. You're
Wow.
out of line. You're done. Okay? Now, watch what happens after he gets rebuked and walks off the stage. Listen to the audience here. So they're booing the pastor who put on this conference.
Wow, that's great that they're booing the guy that kicked out Pastor Driscoll. Very interesting.
Let me just say this.
You hear someone cursing, get that out. Which obviously isn't good. Not good to use curse words, of course, but it's just very interesting how a lot of them were on Pastor Driscoll's side in this case.
They're yelling, get off the stage! Get off the stage! Wow.
If Mark wanted to say that, he should have said it to me first. He didn't. Matthew 18. If your brother offends you, go to him privately. I'll talk to Mark for a half hour.
But here's the thing: he's citing Matthew 18, but I believe he's using that verse out of context. So when you see like a sin that your brother is doing, and the Matthew 18 says to speak to him privately about the matter, then you do that. But this isn't about this guy right here, the sin that he committed, or anything that he's comfortable with. This is about the performance that person hired there. And now, I don't know if Pastor Driscoll knew about this beforehand, but regardless, this is not about this person's sin himself. This is about the performance and calling out the performance, which we are called to do in many cases in the Bible.
There was not one word of that. He's out of line. If you want to say it, he can say it to me. You may not agree with me. You may not agree with him. But we are brothers in Christ. And there's a right way to handle this.
So that's the James River Church pastor. Show me the toes guy, that guy. So it's important to note that multiple things can be true here. And the most shocking part about the story that no one is talking about, I'm going to tell you here in a moment. But first, let me just say this. The response of that audience in support of Mark Driscoll and against this pastor shows me that there is a rising up of men that are tired of the superficial, let's just entertain you and have monster trucks and fireworks and explosions and sword swallowers at these types of conferences. That there's men here that are hungry for something, for more, and are sick of the mockery that oftentimes is displayed in some of these entertainment-infused environments regarding our evangelical Protestant circles. I mean,
that is so true. And I think Ruslan really hits the nail on the head here. I think so many men are tired of this very not just soft, because soft doesn't mean a negative thing in a lot of cases. Like, it's important to be very approachable to friends and a spouse and all that in times of need and necessity. But so many men are tired of this coddling culture that we have, where pleasure and lust and all of these types of things that are just degenerate are what is appealing to men. And I completely disagree with this awful insinuation. I mean, there's some times when I go to the store, or when I'm watching TV at home, and I see these ads of beer and men drinking beer and all this. And I even looked up online recently good wedding gifts for groomsmen. And the first thing that comes up, beer. Beer and cigars. Obviously cigars isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're not, high and all that. But as far as all these things, like, the first thing that comes up, beer, alcohol, which is a drug, which the Bible very clearly states, if you're a drunkard, that is blaspheming God's purpose for you. So all of these things go hand in hand. And I just hate this idea of this watching entertainment sports and drinking beer is all that men are typically good for on their free time. I think it's a fallacy. I think it's hideous, frankly, in my opinion. And a lot of these men are fed up with it, as Ruslan is stating here, like a guy with his shirt off that's swallowing swords, and then monster trucks and all that. Like, this kinds of things entertain, like, at least the monster trucks part, entertain like 10 or 12-year-olds, to be honest with you. Not grown men, at least for the most part. Sure, it'd be cool to see on TV and all this, but why would you pay tickets to go to a Christian men's conference to see a monster truck crush these cars? I mean, think about it. Is that really glorifying God?
This is partially the reason why we are seeing so many people leave Protestant circles and become Catholics and Orthodox, is because they're honestly tired of the non-stop entertainment in terms of how some of this goes down. Not all churches, not all Protestant churches, not all evangelicals, but some of the bigger ones definitely have this sort of stuff, and it's cringe.
Yeah, Ruslan is very correct on this, and I think that's what it draws me. And I'm a Protestant in general, but I respect so much of the Orthodox content that I see online. I mean, the first video that I published is from Orthodox priest, and I fully agree with this. There's none of this shenanigans, super contemporary entertainment, feel good type of worship style that has engulfed so many churches in the Protestant faith of Christ. Like, it's awful. And I'm not going to say non-denominations are all just in this category of not worshiping God, because that's not true. There's many very Christ-like churches, and they're not denominational. So there's nothing wrong with that in particular, but the very contemporary feel-good type of churches are destructive, in my opinion, and not really worship. It's more of like feeling good in your emotions, but not really worshiping Christ, in my opinion. And I think that's proven true here. I mean, there was one time where I was at this light festival during Christmas time, and in front of this church they had all these lights, and they had this Santa Claus and all of these fictionary characters in front of the church, and there's donations for hot chocolate that you could make to walk around all these characters and costumes and all these things. But in my opinion, I don't believe that God would be happy with advertising all these secular holidays, secular holiday fictional characters in front of a church, so they can make money off of that, but not off God's word.
Now, there are multiple things that can be true.
Now, to be fair, they had a Christian nativity scene and all that behind the church, but it's just odd to me that you have all these fictional fictional secular characters in front of your church to get all the attention of all these people, but then when you go in the back of the church, that's where all the Christian story and the birth of Jesus Christ and the nativity scene and all that is in the back of the church, not in the front. So just the symbolism of that is wrong and backwards, upside down, in my opinion, which really explains the modern culture hyperbole in that.
True at once. Shirtless, sword-swallowing circus acts, probably not the best idea at a men's conference. Also, at the same time, Driscoll rightfully called out some of the shenanigans that I think too many people are tired of seeing these sorts of events. However, if Driscoll did have a 30-minute conversation with the pastor of this church, as cringy as he is, probably should have said something to him before he went up to say that. Now, I'll chalk it up to the reality that perhaps Driscoll was sleep deprived. He was tired. He said he had been up since 1 a.m. His voice was hoarse. He had been praying for these people. I would just chalk it up to, hey, Driscoll was tired. Perhaps he didn't count the cost or calculate what he was going to say, came out in the moment. And then Matthew 18 was used as a way to rebuke him in the situation, which I don't know how I feel about using that passage. I would also say that the performer here was doing his regular act. Probably not appropriate for a Christian conference, but he wasn't intentionally channeling the Jezebel spirit and trying to rile people up. Just wasn't appropriate for this environment. But what happened next that no one is talking about is by far the most shocking thing. Driscoll, unlike Driscoll Forum, unfortunately pulled a J. Cole, and later at this same conference ended up publicly apologizing to this pastor. So,
oh, wow. That's really interesting. I did not know this.
after all this happened, Pastor Mark Driscoll and Pastor John Lindell, who just kicked him off stage, actually go back on the stage together and end up having this exchange where Driscoll apologized to him.
Mark and I talked. We went outside where we could be alone and we could talk. And we've reaffirmed our friendship. And Mark, I want you to know, you're a gift to the kingdom. You're a gift to James River. You've been a gift to Debbie and I. You've helped us in things. You've been kind to my family, mentored my sons. And I love you. And I told Mark, listen, he says, I'll do whatever you want. I said, well, if you're willing, and we could come in and talk, and we'll let him talk to you in a moment. If you're willing, I want you to speak again. I want to find out about Elijah.
This is fairly grainy footage. It's the best we can get. I don't know if they're going to put out something from the actual conference. Here is footage of Driscoll's response to what Pastor John said to him.
I believe what I should have done, since I had another session, I was thinking about it. It wasn't in my notes. I didn't intend to go there. I was up late praying for the men. I just kept seeing it. And I should have, between sessions, talked to you rather than just verbal processing on the stage. And as the father and the head of the house, you could have given me a thumbs up or down, and I need to honor that as spiritual authority. And I honor your spiritual authority. I apologize to you for not going that route.
I don't know what to do with that.
I don't understand why he would apologize, because you shouldn't apologizing for publicly rebuking sin that you see clearly. And I think there's definitely another way you could have gone about it. So I disagree with that. I don't think you need to apologize for that, but that's just my opinion.
All right. I am someone that's been blessed by Mark Driscoll.
I think that's all I'll share in this video. So thank you so much for listening, and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you'd like to share any videos with me, please comment down below any videos you'd like me to react to, and I'll be happy to react to it. God bless.